welcome to Blackbriar Gaming. Today, we're going to look at the article and exemplary battle PDF we've just had drop. Just on a Tuesday for most of you, Wednesday for us here down under. Now, we've got rules for Daemons and some direction on what the next few months look like for Heresy rules releases. Games Workshop have given us just a taste of Daemons today, only a few units, which is not a move I necessarily disagree with. But we'll chat about that soon. First, I'm keen to look at what GW have planned for Heresy, then we'll get deep into some Daemon action. Just a quick note before we get into it, a subscribe and a like really helps us reach a bigger audience. So if you enjoyed the video, please hit those buttons down below. Also, be sure to check out our affiliate link in the description. So here we are. The Bound Demons of the Ruinstorm herald a packed year for the Horus Heresy. So this article, not only have we got some cheeky rules for Daemons, but we also have a bit of direction on what we're getting for the rest of the year for Heresy. Now, someone was just complaining a week ago on the YouTube channel that they were commenting that they're really upset. They don't have some direction on what's coming out. Why can't GW tell us what's happening? Why all this secrecy? Well, GW apparently read that exact comment, and here we are. So we'll get straight into it. So we've got the Bound Demons of the Ruinstorm PDF, the Burning of Omnmat, the Exemplary Battle PDF that we'll look at soon, but I'm keen to look at first exactly what GW is bringing out. So we go down a little, we've got the Exemplary Battle format, yep, great, here we go, but this is just the beginning. The Horus Heresy team has been extremely busy writing, playtesting, illustrating, and laying out the next wave of supplements. Now, for a second I thought supplements might mean more books. No, I'm pretty sure by supplements they mean more Exemplary Battle PDFs. Alongside these projects, they've been working away on a few other army lists, which are very nearly ready to release as PDFs. The first of these is the much anticipated Imperialis Militia Army List. Fantastic, people have been really waiting for that. They talk about, they wanted to release some Cadians first. Sure, GW, if that's the story you want to tell yourself, whatever. After that, we'll be returning to all things demonic with a full army list for the Demons of the Ruinstorm. So for all those people that were extremely worried that we'd only be seeing demons in exemplary battle lists coming out piecemeal, no, they have dropped now. A few units, but a full army list for demons will be coming out, and they say it's going to be coming out some point over the summer. So only a few more months to wait for that one. We've already waited so long, a few more months won't kill us. But it'll be so great to finally have them. In the meantime, to cap all this infernal content off, we'll be looking at various types of cultists, as well as demon engines. So great, and that is the exemplary battles, I imagine. Will be coming, all kinds of cool trader stuff coming out over, the next 12 months, I guess, with the exemplary battles that are moving away from the Legion forces, from the Astartes, and starting to bring out some of the other cool stuff that was going on in the Heresy. So that's what they've got planned. Really great to see. They haven't forgotten the PDFs like people were worried maybe they had. We've got the militia coming, we've got the demons coming, and then we're going to see some cultists and other shenanigans coming in future exemplary battle lists. What do we call them? PDFs, exemplary battle PDFs? Sure. And all this is coming out over the next few months. So that is the rules plan for Heresy. Things are coming. What happens after that? We don't really know. But let's get those PDFs first so everyone can play their armies. Unless, of course, your Black Shields. Unlucky. Maybe one day. But coming up, militia and demons. But for now, we have... Scroll to the top, I was busy reading. We have this. It is the Burning of Omnmat, Horus Heresy, Exemplary Battles of the Age of Darkness, and we have some demon units. Now, they've only released a few. And there's a few people that are upset about this, that we only see a few units for demons, why they're not dropping the whole list. Well, they're saying that they want to playtest them a little more, and I don't hate that response. They're going to throw these units out into the wild and start to get some feedback, which is kind of a nice way to do it. Playtesting internally, there's only so much you can see and not see, as we've seen GW never being able to really balance anything. So instead of dropping a full Demons army list with, they could have done that, no doubt. They've decided to put a few units out there, see how it interacts with the game, because they're so different from your regular Astartes that it could just absolutely flip the game on its head. Demons became way too powerful or just have no impact whatsoever. But by releasing a few units early on, they get some community feedback, people get them on the table, and then hopefully they still have time after that feedback is given. And please do give feedback, people. There is an email address for it. They'll have some time to hopefully still tweak that full army list for the Demons. So here we go. So that's the plan. Now let's dive deep into what the Demons are up to. So this is not the full Ruinstorm Demons. This is a Bound Demons supplementary list. So they've got the Bound unit subtype, and they've got this weird Bound Malefica special rule. And that means a bunch of things. It means they don't interact with that strength and toughness piece around the turns. It means you really need psychers on the table to both bring them on and to keep their strength and toughness up, but mostly it's around deployment shenanigans. So there's a few ways this works. I'm going to just give a brief summary, but the idea is that they either, through psychic checks of your psychers, so you want a high leadership psyker if you can get it, they can either deploy at the start of the game, or they can come on later as reserves once you start passing psychic checks. Now, there's no talk about deep striking or how they deploy from reserves, so it is my assumption that if you don't deploy them first up by passing those psychic checks during deployment, they are in fact walking on from reserves at your table edge, unless there's some weird reserve shenanigans going on with the mission. So it's not optimal. It's not the best way to bring them on, and we'll talk about that in a second. Walking on from reserves doesn't feel great, especially for units that want to be in assault. You can definitely get left behind if you're not coming on until turn 2, turn 3. You don't have to roll for them like traditional reserves. It is just that psychic check, but geez, failing a psychic check to bring them on turn 2 when they're walking on from your board edge would really hurt, and probably just leave them at the back of the board, not doing much in subsequent turns. However, there's another way to bring them on, and that is, of course, the Breach the Veil, there we go, psychic power that the Legion Esoterist has. So if you're going to be running Demons, my strong recommendation is you really want to be taking a Legion Esoterist, because of course this bound list we're looking at, they can only be taken as allies. Just to clarify, missed that part. So the Bound Malefica piece is that, yes, you can see here, Legion Esoterist, Breach of the Veil, Psychic Power, can bring them on because they count as Ruinstorm Demon units for that purpose. Now, I don't know, if you haven't had a good read of Breach of the Veil, please go and do so. It's amazing when you start looking at some of these units. Essentially, in your shooting phase, you put down a blast marker within 12 inches, people, of your Esoterist, and you can do this turn 1. So these are reserves, essentially, that you can pull on turn 1. All you have to do, look, you don't even have to really pass a psychic check, because if you pass the psychic check, great, the blast marker goes exactly where you want it. Once again, wild, better than deep strike. If you don't pass the psychic check, it does scatter. Noting that, of course, there's still a chance that it's going to hit, and I'm pretty sure it might scatter 2d6, but if it hits the enemy, it just stops. So yes, you do suffer a Perils of the Warp check for your Esoterist, and he might cop it, although that can go into the unit he's with, so keep that in mind. But essentially, even if you fail the psychic check while casting Breach of the Veil, a demon unit, one unit, to specify, a demon unit is still coming on the board. So there's kind of 3 ways, 4 if we include Erebus, but no one wants Erebus. There's a bunch of different ways to bring these guys on. You either deploy them at the start by passing psychic checks, you bring them on as reserves by passing psychic checks, or you use the Breach of the Veil psychic power, which I think is by far the best way to do it. A friend of mine, Dean, you all know Dean, he described the Breach of the Veil psychic power as pretty much, Pokeball, whipping out a Pokeball and saying, Samus, go! As you throw that Pokeball forward and Samus bursts forth, ready to just charge into assault. Just wild. The threat range is absolutely insane once you incorporate the 12 inches that you can put in that blast marker to begin with. They then move on from the blast marker, within their movement, and then on top of that, can still assault. Absolutely wild. I really like how Breach of the Veil interacts with Interceptor. So while the enemy can still use Interceptor, they're doing it in the shooting phase. So they're drawing down on their shooting reactions, which are of course much more powerful than movement reactions, and it allows you to have some shots in them first within your shooting phase before casting this psychic power. So much better than coming on in the movement phase, in my opinion. I think it's pretty powerful. Great way to do it. Let's move on. So, the Bound Demons, they have this Etheric Dominion special rule, which essentially lets you pick from a whole bunch of different special rules to kind of flavor your demons. Now, it looks like some of these are aimed towards certain chaos gods, putrid corruption, for instance, being Nurgle, formless distortion, perhaps being Zenich. There's kind of better ones and worse ones here. None of these are terrible, except maybe a Heedless Slaughter. That's probably my least favorite one. The others are all pretty good. Let's see, Putrid Corruption, you got your 6+ mitigation there. Formless Distortion can make them better in Assault. Encroaching Run means you're taking less wounds from failed morale checks. Sorry, Encroaching Ruin, not Encroaching Run. Ravenous Dissolution, +1 to hit when you're in combat with Psychers, independent characters, corrupted units or demons. That's okay. Rapturous Sensation, +1 initiative step if you're charging or being charged. That's pretty good, although that most units are at initiative 5 from what we've got so far, so meh. Malevolent Artifice, I think, is actually probably the best. That's re-rolling all failed armor saves, taking against wounds at strength value lower than their toughness. So toughness is pretty high across the board, and their armor saves are 4+. So bolters or chainswords in combat can work their way through your demons. So and because you've got so many wounds, that's probably the best way for your opponent to do it. So being able to re-roll your failed armor saves, noting that it's not invulnerable saves or cover saves, is pretty good. Autocannons are probably you're still going to be terrified of because we're looking at 4+ saves here. But anything else, your bolters, your chainswords, because it does work in shooting and assault, which obviously makes it even better. That's my go-to, I think, with what these units are looking like at the moment. And then you've got Infernal Tempest, Hammer of Wrath gets better, and you've got a shooting reaction. Sure. But yeah, so as I said, Malevolent Artifice is my go-to here on what I would be picking out. And look, I've just had a quick look at this. It's pretty early on. This just dropped this morning, but I thought we'd have a chat about it anyway, because it's exciting. I'm really excited about this. So Bound Samus is awesome. He's a little bit squishy with that 3+ save and a 4+ invul, but not that squishy. Not really, because he has 7 wounds and his toughness 7. He is 380 points, but here's the really exciting thing. He's in a HQ slot. So most units that come at this point, we're talking about Primarchs, other wild special characters, they're usually in the Lord of War, and they do have a Lord of War coming up. Cabanda, we'll get to that. But Samus here is an HQ unit, which means you can take him in any point game that you like. You can throw him in a 1500 point game if you were that way inclined and do absolute work with him. Especially because he can pop out of that Pokeball from your Esoterist and just charge straight into assault, so you don't really need to worry about shooting except for the, some Overwatch, some interceptor reactions. But if you're clever about it, you mitigate that, and suddenly the enemy has the End and the Death, the Demon Prince of the Primordial Annihilator, right into their units. Turn 1, really, let's be honest. He's got a movement 8, so plus 12 that yet Esoterist can put down their Veil. He's already at 20 inches up the board from wherever your Esoterist is, which can be, 7 inches past your deployment zone. So suddenly, plus assault, you've got a threat range of, 30 plus inches at least. Just wild. Turn 1, people. You're into assault. Passing psychic checks or not, as long as your Esoterist is still alive. And that's something you need to think about. Look, I won't go deep into Samus. He's got a whole bunch of rules. Rage 3 is really nice, putting up to probably 8 attacks on the charge there. A bunch of End in the Death, sure. Invul saves, re-rolling for your enemies, great when in challenges. That's your invul save. Instant Death only takes D3 wounds, sure. He's messing with enemy reserve rolls. He has fear. He's got an amazing weapon. Samus is good. Samus is really good. And the real benefit there is that you can just pop this guy out of nowhere. The threat range, and it can just touch pretty much anything on the board. Turn 1, get into assault, depending on what those deployment zones look like. That's what Samus does, and that's why Samus is amazing. Moving on. Look, you won't see Samus in a lot of games, I'm sure. People don't often lead towards those really high point characters, so let's get into what people might more likely be taking. Here we've got the HQ unit, your standard Bound Demon Regent, with some attendants if you choose. Now, I would choose because the Regent is not an independent character, so you can't attach it to one of your other demon units, so I would highly recommend the attendants so that your Regent doesn't just get shot off the board with their 4+ save on the turn they rock up. But you do have a 4+ invulnerability here for your Regent, which is nice. Your attendants, essentially, unless I'm wrong, they're kind of just brutes, right? Yep, they're pretty much just brutes. There might be one or two different things here. It's probably the Chosen Warriors is the main change there, but they're mostly just brutes, which we'll look at in a minute. So we'll focus on the Regent. The Regent's got a great weapon, the Regent Blade, AP2, at initiative with Murderous Strike 5+. Mwah! Going to do some serious work to Dreadnoughts, I dare say. Although only weapon skill 5. So that's a bit of a shame. Would have loved weapon skill 6 here. But that's a bit of a theme we're seeing across the Demons. The Brutes only weapon skill 4. Regent only weapon skill 5. They wanted to tone them down a little, which is fair. First edition Demons, I'm not going to go into it, but they were a lot, okay? They were a lot. But initiative 5, great. Toughness 6 is really nice here. And this is why I think the Demons are going to actually do a lot of work here, because if you've ever run Galvorback or run against Galvorback, there's a bunch of their rules that are great, but the main thing that comes into it is their toughness. It means that Strength 8 and Strength 9 isn't instant killing you, and that makes such a difference. It makes such a difference when getting shot at by las cannons, and it makes such a difference when getting hit by Power Fists and Thunder Hammers. So Toughness 6 is fantastic. You will not be instant killed unless, of course, they've got the instant death special rule or Murderous Strike. But otherwise, against most things you're going to be coming up against, you're going to be doing really well in challenges, making an absolute mess of enemy Praetors, and anything below that will just absolutely crumble. And 130 points is really reasonable for what you're getting here. If you've given it the Artifice, what was it? The Malevolent Artifice, I want to say. So it's re-rolling their 4+ save against anything that's not getting past that. And if it does get past that, it's hitting your 4+ invul. So not as tough as something with Artificer Armor, let's say, in an Iron Halo, sure. But that Toughness 6 is just so nice. Bunch of attacks on the charge. Love it. Bound Demon Regent will do work. So that's what you're going to see most people taking. One of them with some attendants. Would recommend the attendants. And then backed up by the only troop, the only other real slot we have that isn't a Lord of War, it's our Bound Demon Brutes. Now, the reason I think they've released these two units first up is because they actually have models for them in Forge World. So, of course, for smaller demons, there's all the 40k demons. I'd love to see some smaller demons come out from a Forge World line, because the Forge World demons look quite different to what the 40k line is trying to achieve. So we'll wait and see. I would love to see it. It's a little bit of a hint, maybe, the fact that they haven't brought out rules for anything other than what they've got miniatures for so far, that we might, in the future, see some more Forge World demons. But we'll wait and see. That's just a little guess that I'm taking. But here we go. We've got the Bound Demon Brutes. So they've got all the rules. They've got a 5+ invul, Hammer of Wrath, great. They're bulky. They're traitors. You can take up to 6 of them in a unit, which is really nice. Their stats, the weapon skill 4 is probably the only thing that's letting them down here. Other than that, strength and toughness 5 is great. 3 wounds is what you want to see. And initiative 5 is so spicy. It means you're going before most basic Marines, which is lovely. Attacks 3, leadership's not great. Leadership might be a bit of an issue for this army. We will find out once we start playtesting it and having some fun with it. But certainly that's their weakness, is that leadership right there. Although the Regent, yeah, see, Regent's only leadership 8. Whew. It's a bold move. So that's how you want to get into them. But once again, demons, correct me if I'm wrong, but when they're failing morale checks, they're losing D3 wounds, and that's about it. So they're not running away at least, but they're dying, which is fun. It's thematic. They're dying as you kill them, and they're starting to break away from reality. So here we are, the Demon Brutes. What we really care about here is their weapons, which are the Brute armaments. Murderous Strike and Rending is just such a great combo. It's so nice. I've played with it a bunch because, of course, the Galvorback have it, and we've got similar thing going on here. So Murderous Strike 5+, which is better than the Galvorback, I believe. So that's going to be doing some real work, especially on things like veterans or models with multiple wounds that only have a 3+ save are going to be terrified of these guys. But then once they get to that 6+ anyway, that 6+ sweet spot, they're rending and they're murderous striking, and they're doing it at initiative 5. So these guys are going to be just fantastic for taking out those 2+ save units. Yes, the enemy will be getting those invul saves if you're taking out something like Terminators or Dreadnoughts, but it's still doing a lot of work. Weapon skill 4, once again, will hurt them. Against elite infantry, they're going to probably struggle because they'll only be hitting on 5s, but against your basic Terminators, which we're seeing a whole bunch of, your Astartes Terminators on the board. These guys are going to do absolutely fantastic. So I think the brutes, they're pretty good. So 135 points for 3 of them. They're 40 points each. So you got your 15-point tax there. Look, I'm happy. I'm happy to pay 40 points of these. Once again, especially when they're popping out of nowhere with some Breach of the Veil shenanigans Pokeball action. They just turn up in the middle of your opponent's army and suddenly they're running into assault. There's nothing they can do about it besides some cheeky reactions that you can try and draw out earlier in shooting phases as well. And that's why I love Breach of the Veil being in the shooting phase, because you try and draw out those shooting phase reactions before you pop this off as well. It's a real mind game that you're playing with your opponent, and you don't have to bring them on turn 2 as well. You choose. You can choose turn 3, turn 4, whenever you feel you need these guys on the board. And when your opponent's army has been taking enough hits that they're not going to really be able to react to them in any meaningful way, that's when suddenly you're just bursting forth a bunch of demons. So that's the brutes. I think they're good. I think they're solid. I don't think they're overpowered. I think they'll do work in certain circumstances. They're going to struggle against certain things. But I like them. I really like them. As a big fan of Galvor back, this is essentially just more of that. All right, the last unit here we'll talk about just quickly. It's Karbanda. He's a Lord of War. He's a whole bunch of points. He does a whole lot of damage. He's fantastic. So you can compare him to a Primarch easily enough. He does very similar things, but when you compare him to some of the Lord of War tanks out there that are just so overcosted, Karbanda is going to be doing so much more work. He's so much tougher. So much more maneuverable. Just love him. Absolutely love him. There's so little outside of a Primarch that can even go toe-to-toe with this guy or deal with him in any meaningful way. So we might see a bunch of him. His model, of course, is ridiculously expensive. But also, there's a plastic Angron that's come out recently with a bit of conversion work. Maybe that could be a cheaper option to get a converted Karbanda onto the table. So this guy's great. I won't go deep into the rules. He just kills stuff. He kills stuff really good. So that's the end, right? Just a whole lot more special rules. Gargantuan, that's for Karbanda. There we go. There's Samus. Just doing Samus things with some brutes. So I think the Demons, they're looking really solid so far. It'll be interesting to see if GW keeps with these rules when they release the eventual army list, if they decide to tweak them in some way. I dare say it'll come back to the feedback that the community provides. So get them on the table, people. Give them a play test, provide some feedback, help GW out, help the community out, let them know if they're underpowered, overpowered. At the moment, it kind of looks like they're in a sweet spot where they're going to be really useful in some circumstances. They're going to add quite a bit to trader armies, and I just, they're going to be a bunch of fun. Going to be a whole lot of fun to play. So that is pretty much all I have to say about the Demons today. Brings us to the end of our chats. Let me know what you think in the comments about the units, the Demon units, and about also Heresy rule releases coming out. What do you think of that? Do you think the Demons are too much, too little? Let me know what you think. But importantly, make sure to keep rolling those dice and getting hyped for Heresy.